In today's episode of the Health Collective podcast, we are joined by Todd Hartley. He is the author of the #1 best-selling sales and marketing book, Accelerating Yes. He is a force to be reckoned with, a sought-after keynote speaker, a digital and video marketing visionary, and a sales optimization guru. Todd's revolutionary strategies have propelled his clients to new levels of success. This has earned him the prestigious role of special advisor to the White House, and he's also worked with huge businesses such as Tony Robbins and Justin Timberlake alike. His foresight and innovation when it comes to marketing and video has made him the go-to strategist for billion-dollar corporations, luminaries, and world leaders. And here he is with us to help you with his key insights on video marketing to scale your business. So if you're looking for help in lead generation or conversion with your clients, then this is the best place that you can be for the next 60 minutes of your life. He is here to share his key insights that are usually reserved for the likes of Tony Robbins and those at Business Mastery. So if you are looking for help in scaling your business, changing your revenue, or growing your own video marketing portfolio, then listen in for Todd, his strategies, and an amazing extended episode. Look forward to hearing how you feel. Let us know if you've got any questions, and enjoy. So first of all, a massive welcome to our guest today, Todd. Although I've given him an introduction, he does not need any. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be with us.
Rita, it's awesome. I love the fact that you asked, and I'm excited to pour into your audience with you.
Fabulous. So let's start with essentially the reason why I got you on here. So for those of you that know me, you know that I am a big coaching fan, and the first time that I was opened to the world of Todd Hartley was at Business Mastery, learning about video and the keys of video marketing in today's society. And it tripled my business revenue within the space of just 3 months when I employed some of these strategies. So talking of video marketing, what, first of all, opened your eyes to why this is so key? Where did your love of video and the exploration of that format come from?
It's a great question. You should know I did not own a camera when I discovered video was the most powerful tool in the business world. I wasn't looking for a place to create movies. I wasn't a filmmaker. I was a digital marketer, and I was at iHeartRadio. I was leading digital for 7 of their largest nationally syndicated talk shows. And inside the data, by the way, for those that don't know, your decisions on what you should do is always in the data. Okay. The answers for what your audience is asking is always in the analytics. And I was at iHeartRadio, and we had data that was probably the largest data set of how people were looking at information, but it was all people that loved music or talk radio or the spoken word. And we had 1,200 stations across the US, and we were running marketing for them. And there might be 80 million visitors over a month that would go in. And so part of my job, Rita, was to go to the head of the network and say, here's what our audience is liking. So once a week, I would have a meeting with the head of the network, and I would show him what's working and what isn't. And every week the meeting was the same. Video is getting 10 times the results of anything else that we're doing. And my boss would say, yeah, that's great, but we're audio people, we're iHeartRadio. And I go, yeah, but they're really video people too. And I felt like such a jerk having that meeting every week with my boss, because it was always the same thing. And by 2007, I was there for 4 years. By 2007, I decided to recognize and acknowledge that the world was screaming for video. This is right around the time YouTube started. This is right around the time when bandwidth was lower. And I decided that as bandwidth became more available, people's love, desire, craving for video would become more dominant, and it would be a video tool that business would be using left and right. And so I planted my flag in the video space, and then bandwidth became available, and I already had a career, but the next version of my career was born.
Amazing. I love that. And the data is key. And I think for those who are listening, a lot of them are in their own businesses. And even to the point of a mid-sized business, a lot of emotion can be linked with business. Yep. And actually just looking at the numbers, looking at the data is absolutely the right way to develop that growth. So in terms of the growth of video, in the time that you have been focusing on this, because for me, as someone who comes from the outside looking into this kind of video world, my biggest memories were things like Blockbuster moving into Netflix, these kind of changes in how the format was delivered. So what have you seen have been the biggest areas of change or development or growth in the area of video marketing since you've been in this industry?
Yeah, I think that the biggest growth and area for development is the concept of individual video to one individual recipient. So we all know the concept of a one video that goes to many people. I call that a one-to-many video. And inside that could be testimonials and overview videos and ads and webinars and, a whole big laundry list of business-related videos. But on the other side, the one-to-one video is a video featuring a business leader or a salesperson that they've created for their prospect or their prospect's decision-making team. And what I've discovered is when I create a video for a prospect and their decision-making team, they all have such massive clarity and they have the ability to collaborate that I end up closing a significantly higher percentage of deals. And the people that have gone through my training on how to close deals using video, just last year, they ended up closing over $6 billion in sales. So it is the biggest open territory for any business leader that wants to get more yeses in their life, creating a simple video for their prospect while their prospect is evaluating their proposal or their solution is going to yield something like 31% more yeses to about 270%. You just mentioned right there that you got a 300% increase in 3 months. So you're right in with what I'm seeing across business leaders all over the world.
It's interesting that essentially this sort of one-to-one rather than one-to-many is in essence the word personalized, right? It's yes. Bespoke, it's human-to-human interaction. In today's marketing in general, not just video, there is a lot of technology out there to create shortcuts, to create time saving. But at its essence, do you feel that regardless of the type of marketing, it's the personal touch and the effort and the energy that's put into it that makes the biggest difference?
Almost every single time. And so people that are listening are conditioned to think scalability, but conversion is really what we're after. We're after converting people into a paying client. And often the most scalable is the least personal, and the least personal has the lowest conversion. So I want to question conventional wisdom, and I want to push back where appropriate. And I want to show people that if you just spent 7 meetings with somebody and you're close to closing a deal, or maybe you just had 1 meeting and they're interested, if you create a little 3-minute video, how long is it going to take me though? It's going to take you about 3 minutes. And then you send them the video, you're going to win so many more deals. It's the most scalable thing you could ever do, is all about winning more deals. So yeah, I just think it's a really beautiful way. And what happens when you receive a video from somebody is, and you're evaluating their business, is all of a sudden you feel massive significance. You're like, wow, they really value me. Because in our heads, we have a preconceived notion that video has a higher perceived value when you receive it. So don't we all want our prospects to say, wow, they really value me? And if you're giving them that level of touch of that level of bespoke attention, aren't we showing them what our customer service is going to be like on the other side of the transaction, that we're going to go above and beyond and serve them so they have massive clarity inside their head and they understand with absolute certainty that we're going to be able to help them? I mean, it's just at some point it becomes a no-brainer. And this is why people are closing a freakish amount of deals creating personalized videos.
There's two words there that we're definitely going to pick up on: significance and certainty, because anybody who is watching this and might recognize Todd's hat, those two words might register with you a little bit. Before we move on to that, I'd love to just understand this growth in technology and what's happening. And you said, in your own words, the scalability is the least personal. How do you feel AI is having an effect or will have an effect on the role that video marketing is playing? Because everyone seems to have a lot of fear around AI, deep fakes, and various. So what are you seeing as its role as this develops?
I think you're in the opening chapter. And it's wise for us as business leaders to keep the long-term view. And when I got started with AI and like mass-produced video, I was skeptical. But here's what I'm seeing. I booked for my agency. There's one video of me that goes out, and it goes out to our database. And that video is, I'll give you an example. I'll just do a little like 10 seconds on. It's like, hey, it's Todd Hartley. And I was on your website. One of the things that I noticed is X, Y, and Z. And it's hyper relevant to everybody. And the video, the AI switches out the background to their website. So it is all of a sudden you're getting a personal video. And I'm mentioning things in terms that feel personal. And once the website's behind you, your website, you're like, yo, this dude just created a video for me, right? And that in the last 3 months has booked more meetings for my sales team than maybe 3 or 4 other initiatives that we're doing. So and when I get on the phone with them, or I read the reports from my sales team when they get on the phone, what they're really hearing is, thank you for sending me that video. It was really helpful, and that you went through our website. And so if you do it right, it has massive scalability and it can book meetings. Now, there's a lot of cloning technology. And let me just back up. I'm reviewing one right now for a SaaS product that I am building. And this would be a technology where we take Rita and we create a clone, which would be like an AI version of Rita. And then we could type in what we wanted Rita to say. And then the video would go out to recipients and it would look and feel very much like Rita, with a slight 10% lack of believability. Now, this is the opening chapter in the AI revolution. A couple things are going to play out. One, the technology is going to get better. And what might feel like a little bit of a awkwardness or a lack of believability today, tomorrow will be solved as part of the evolution. So there's a difference going on. Now, what I think is going to play out, I think that's going to work really well. It's currently working in its earliest form for me. But I also know that as it gets better, everybody's going to also get their BS detectors going to become stronger. And so it's a little bit of a give and take. And I encourage people to test. Like, part of the best, most exciting part of business is testing and discovering and realizing, oh my gosh, this just booked us 15 meetings this week. And now your business is scaling and growing. Like, so there's like, don't miss the massive growth in the future, because now it isn't 100% perfect. Like, that never stopped any of us when we went to Blockbuster as kids and got movies, and the movies were 720p. Our brains filled in the details to make it look like it was 4K. And so just know the technology is going to get better, and you're going to be on the leading edge if you stay hungry and inquisitive. And if you wait, you'll be late to the party.
I think that's a really interesting perspective on it. And it's that curiosity about where it could lead us. And rather than seeing change with fear, which tends to be the biggest reaction when anything is shifting, it's that open curiosity, that kind of, even the way that you were describing it, there was a bit of a childlike curiosity about it, which I think a lot of people in business lose, is that sort of childlike hunger to learn and to grow as the world adapts, which I think is great. In terms of the video marketing from a one to many. So the way that, just for context for those listening, the way that we saw such massive growth in our business using some of the tools that we learned from you was in the taking people almost through a story on our website. So using video at different key perspectives so that we could fill in the right gaps, answer the right questions, create certainty at the right time. So that was where we saw such growth. So when it comes to video as a story, that's kind of what I took from you, was seeing video as a way to tell a story and take someone through a journey. What do you see as the biggest keys that need to be included in that story? If that customer is your hero, what are the biggest keys or insights that you would say in using that one to many through a website or some sort of email marketing trail, something along those lines?
I love it. So just so everybody's following along with Rita, we just moved from personal video to video that would be on a website. Okay. So, you know, in our lifetime, we've all looked at videos being like, oh, it's like, there's one type of video. And so the biggest distinction in a video on, which really we're talking about, is a testimonial story. And a testimonial should feature first a raving client of yours. But the most important element is the video needs to be really about your raving client. A lot of people think that that video, because it's going to be on their website, should be about us. But the truth is, as soon as the video is all about you, it feels like a commercial. And then the viewers feel like they're being sold to, and their defense mechanism goes up. And the way that you lower their defense mechanism is you make the story about the client that's raving. And so we use what is called the hero's journey. The hero's journey, we're all familiar with it. It's the story arc of Star Wars. Let me give it to you really quickly. And let's make Rita a part of this story. Okay. The story arc goes like this. By the way, this would be on Rita's website. So all of you just extrapolate this as, when I mention Rita, that it's your business. Okay. And so the video is about Rita's client, Wendy, and it features Wendy. And Wendy says, you know, I was struggling. Think about Star Wars, by the way, guys. This is all Star Wars. Luke Skywalker at the beginning has a conflict. He struggles. He then goes, and his world feels like it's got too much of a burden. He then finds his lovable mentor, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then Obi-Wan teaches him the way of the Force. And there he has the battle and the transformation and wins the victory, and then returns to his life transformed. This is a hero's journey. So now let's go back to Wendy and Rita. Wendy says, you know, I used to struggle miserably with this, this, and that. And I couldn't get to be the person I wanted to be. My health was poor, my fitness level was next to zero, and I really wanted to do this, this, and that. And I was struggling with an inner conflict. And then I met my lovable mentor, Rita, who did X, Y, and Z and coached me up and allowed me to return back to my life transformed, where I could take on the biggest obstacles as a new rebuilt person. And my life has never been the same. Now, the beauty of this is, if it's all about Rita, everybody that's watching it feels like they're being sold to. But if it's all about Wendy telling a story and they go along the journey, what they end up doing is they end up forgetting it's a business video, and they fall back into make-believe. And when they fall back into make-believe, the guard is down, and now they're envisioning their life and them going through this transformation breakthrough. And now at the end, they get to the end, they're like, okay, so I get it. Rita is the transformation queen, and I need Rita. And so this is the magic of telling a story as opposed to doing a commercial. And people know you resist commercials, but the story, and you guys should all write this down and apply it in any of your testimonial stories. The story is the glue that'll bind your audience's attention into your solution. If you miss the story, it's a commercial. And when it's a commercial, it feels icky. And you don't want anybody to feel anything but the transformation that you propose to give them.
I love that. And the story is absolutely the key. I suppose once this whole world comes to a burning crash, whenever that is, we will still have stories to tell each other. So
always.
You know,
in fact, think about this. Stories are timeless. In fact, since the beginning of time, Rita, we looked up as cavemen and women at the stars, and we told the story of the stars. Like today, we would tell stories in books and in movies. So it went from the stars being the stories, to cave drawings being the stories, to campfires surrounded by stories, to books and Kindles and movies and videos on business professionals' websites. So the story is like the one true human constant passed down by generation. And the companies that get better at telling stories, the ones that can do it in a way where it doesn't feel commercially or icky, are the ones that win at scale.
So if business is about telling stories and human interaction, essentially, because that's everything that we're saying, is it's about, at the end of the day, you can have as many scalability automations as you like, but business is about connecting through a commonality of story and understanding. Your story, if I could move us to a slightly more sort of personal question, started probably a bit more challenging than a lot of other people's.
Yes.
And growing up, you're very open about the fact that you suffered with dyslexia and various attention disorders.
Right.
How did that have an impact on the story you decided to write for yourself? Because every day, every year is just another chapter of what we choose to be in the story of our lives. So how did that impact your decisions, your story, and your tale?
It's everything. It's the whole foundation. I didn't tell my story, honestly, until I was probably 40 years old. I was humiliated and ashamed that I couldn't read or write and was in all the slow kid classes growing up, and didn't want anybody to know it. And it damaged my ability to go out and date girls in school. And, all of the things that it just got in the way of everything, because the negativity and the chatter in my head, and it consumed everything. I was less than worthy. And I wrote a story for myself, not physically, I didn't write it down. I had it in my head. And as a 12-year-old boy, my grandfather introduced me to some tapes from a new author that just came out. Maybe you'll know the name. And it was a book called Unlimited Power, written by Tony Robbins. And whenever my grandfather and I would get into the car and sit in traffic in Los Angeles together, which was like every day, because he was always in our home and he worked with my parents, we would listen to Tony's books. And I realized that what the teachers were telling me, their assessments of me, wasn't the final decision maker, and that I was the final decision maker. And then once I realized that I had the power, the unlimited power, to awaken the giant within me, and it might sound like a cliche for some, but Tony's books became the owner's manual to my brain. And I learned that I could achieve and succeed. And if I was willing to put in the work, then anything would be possible for me. So I practiced every day, reading out loud in my bedroom because I read in Tony's books that repetition's the mother of skill, and I believed him. And I wanted to be a talk show host. I wanted to be on the radio, but I was too scared to read in front of people. And so I just put myself through a daily exercise, and it might have been one news article an entire day when I was younger. By the time I got to college, I was reading the entire paper out loud. Whenever my roommate would leave the room, I would stop homework and I would start my reading because I knew it was a foundational exercise. And I just am a huge believer that if you strengthen your weaknesses and develop your strengths and you get consistent with it, your life will never be the same, and you'll be able to go on and, if my case is any example, excel past the people that were in the normal kid classes because they might have not continued developing themselves along the way. And I'm stuck in constant, never-ending improvement, and I'm 100% committed to it. And I just continue to learn the things, and especially when I'm scared, to learn something new, to go from an expert mind to a novice mind. That is exactly the challenging moment that I need to roll up my sleeves and learn new things.
You mentioned being scared, and the way you spoke about, that 12-year-old boy or that young lad sort of feeling nervous and scared to read. You fast forward to today, and you are, by all intents and purposes, a highly successful man in most areas of life. Do you still get scared? What kind of things still instill you with fear? And if so, how do you face that? Because for a lot of people listening, there's a huge amount of fear still in their own growth, whether it's personal or business. Does that still afflict you in different ways?
Not as much, because I've defined it differently. Give you an example. You and I met at Unleash the Power Within a year ago. In person was our first time meeting. And that was in November in West Palm Beach. And this last weekend, I was on stage for Tony Robbins in front of 14,000 people. And I'm incredibly honored to be a part of his legacy. And right before I stepped out on stage, my brain was like, yo, dude, there's 14,000 people out there. But what I really realized is I wasn't scared. I've rechanneled it. It's not fear, it's excitement. And the excitement is different than fear, because when I get nervous, I look at it as an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to serve people and help them get to their next level. So there's very little that I'm afraid of. You ask, so I'll be candid. Today is my wife's birthday. We've been together for 24 years, and we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of her breast cancer survivorship. And that's probably the only thing I'm scared of. And I get scared as we approach every new annual milestone, because it reminds me of how fragile we are. Right.
First of all, a massive happy birthday to your wife. And thank you for allowing him to give us his time on this special day. I appreciate that. Absolutely.
She's at the spa right now, so I got to keep myself busy.
Wonderful. I love it. And talking of that, because there are so many accomplishments that you've had that we really don't have time to list them all, but I encourage anybody to go and research Todd Hartley and the various different areas that you're involved in. Two that I'd love to pick up on. So Tony Robbins, going from that young boy who listened and learned and wanted to emulate this giant of a man, physically and emotionally, to it was COVID that brought you to working with his team on video marketing. So how did that little 12-year-old boy feel when he got that phone call to say that, hey, Tony Robbins wants you?
Well, I don't know how to tell stories except just be really candid about it. And I was the only one in the office. I had just shut our office down and made everybody work from home because of COVID. And we had lockdown. But I sat in my office, and after I got off that phone, and I just whimpered. I whimpered for the rest of it. It was like an 11 o'clock in the morning call. And the rest of the day I was emotionally just shot, because when I was in my grandfather's car I pictured myself being a motivational speaker. And I saw that as being my exit strategy to whatever educational problems that I had. And I kind of created a different life for myself than what the educators had envisioned for me. And I stuck to the story and I never left it. And so when Tony called, it was surreal and it was breakout and transformational. And it felt like this is your moment that you've been waiting for. And now is your time to seize it. And I want everybody to realize that I said yes to Tony that day. And I was going to do 6 or 7 trainings on Zoom for 1,500 salespeople in his companies. He's got 105 businesses. You might know of 1 or 2, but he's got a lot of businesses in his portfolio. So I started training them. But what I didn't tell Tony on that call is I was just diagnosed with skin cancer in the center of my nose in 2 spots right here. You could probably see it, and on the side. And I said yes to Tony, but I really had 13 weeks and 3 surgeries as they were going to reconstruct my nose. So I didn't tell him, but I guess what I was terrified of was getting to do this for my mentor and for his employees while my whole face was bandaged up. And that was a terrifying moment. But my wife got me to make the right decision, which was to serve him and his staff in this time of need and put my need below that. And in doing so, my need to be a GQ model wasn't as important as my need to serve him and help his companies thrive. And we got to do that together. So I got to be a part of his company taking off and being successful at the beginning of the pandemic. And there's very few things that I'm more grateful for, having a moment in time where you can step up and help people. Right?
You just spoke about the cancer on your nose, and it's amazing, as you were discussing story earlier, there was one story that you told it that the business mastery, not where I met Todd in person, but the first time that I was able to experience your words was the business mastery the August before. And I had just been through a major surgery due to cervical cancer. And I remember sitting in business mastery only 7 days later, told, please don't move. And, you know, if anyone's ever been to one of Tony's events virtually or otherwise,
all you're doing is moving.
And I was in a very, very low place where I thought that I can't serve. I look horrendous. I look overweight. I do not espouse what my business is about. And I felt very, very low in my ability to serve people. And it was a huge amount of ego getting in my way. It was a huge amount of it's all about me. And I remember your story about how you got up and did it anyway with a huge bandage. I think you shared a photo at that time of yourself. And it really inspired me to forget whatever I was feeling from an ego-driven perspective and look deeper. So that depth that you instilled in me, and probably the hundreds of thousands of other people watching, there's not a lot of business people like that. Or if there are, they're not as forthwith with their thoughts or emotions as yourself. Where did that emotional drive come from in you? Because a lot of people say, take the personal out of the business. A lot of people like to keep them completely compartmentalized and separate. But for you, it sounds like you can't have one without the other. So where did that drive of emotion, I'm not even expressing myself very well, but it's a feeling of, I don't know, humanity that you bring to the way you talk about business that I don't hear a lot. Where did that come from?
Well, probably my parents. They were both entrepreneurs, and they're still entrepreneurs. And I come from a 4 generations of entrepreneurs on both sides. And I overheard in my parents' house what I now here in my house, which is the frustrations, the concerns about payroll, the challenges of keeping everybody thriving and happy on your staff. And I've also know that I get to serve people like my parents or my sisters, all entrepreneurs. And that for me, I listened to the arguments that my parents had as payroll got closer. And, their marriage lasted 22 years. And I know the toll that business has on marriage and relationships. And one, I think there's an enormous amount of teaching opportunities. And if you're willing to be vulnerable and you can use those as a way to bring people in, you're supposed to make your mess your message. And every time I've done that, it's worked well for me. And I don't know, I get to step out on stage. I feel like I'm helping a whole room full of people that are struggling, just like my parents did, and people who had to have to the night before payroll take it from the family savings account in order to float the company, and have a lot of dynamic challenges because of that. And I'm particularly uninspired by the perfect entrepreneur. I'm uninspired by them because one, I don't believe it. I've never seen it. And two, I think it's the reality of how you get your ass handed to you on a daily basis and still have to walk down the hall and be polite to the people on your team. Or, maybe you just lost a big deal and the phone call that comes right after is the call from the bank, and it's for somebody, one of your employees that's trying to get qualified on a home. Like, this is real stuff, and entrepreneurs deal with it on a daily basis. And I think it needs to be discussed. And I think people need to be inspired to work their way out of it. And if there's any help or motivation that I can give people to be more successful, then by all means, I think that's part of my journey to help them.
I love that. The mess is your message. And absolutely, I don't think I've ever met the perfect entrepreneur either. And this is one of the keys, if we sort of go back to obviously your area of expertise in marketing and video, morality in marketing. There is a lot of marketing. I remember becoming a coach, and one of the very first things I ever saw was, hey, earn X amount of money whilst you sit on a beach in Bali doing absolutely jack all. And the morality in that seemed a little bit squiffy, in my opinion. So where do you see the line in ethical marketing? Because there's an awful lot out there for small, medium, and large businesses which isn't in that area. So how do you tread that line?
More in marketing than anywhere else, because marketers are storytellers, and marketers embellish as part of the job to elevate up to another level. It is part of a marketer's training. Okay. So I think it exists more in marketing than anywhere else. And I also think that marketing is not humble, and it never has been humble. There's never been a good marketing campaign that is, except the ones that I see on the side of the highway, that's about finding God. Those are humble. The other ones, marketing needs to be bold. And in order for it to stand out, that bold is often a couple of clicks above the reality, because they have to embellish to stand out. So where is the ethics? I think it's important for people to remain ethical when you're telling your stories, the stories which are your biggest hook to drive people in and reel them in. Those stories need to be ethical. And I also think that it's incredibly important to let your clients tell your most important stories for you. So a testimonial story has the highest conversion. I can tell you a story about a company. I just spent the founder of the company was with me at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. We're now BFFs. And his company, I could tell you the story, Rita, but if I had him tell it, it's more credible. Do you see that? Yeah. So I could tell you that in 90 days after going through my training, his revenue went up 31%, and we brought in $119 million in new sales in 90 days. But if you hear that from me, it's less believable. But if you hear it from him saying, my company went through Todd's training, and 74 of us learned how to use his strategies. And within 90 days, we brought in $119 million in new deals. Booyah. Like that right there is a whole different world of marketing. So whenever your claims feel like they are too good to be true, have somebody else tell it exactly the way it happened for you. And that'll give you a really good sounding board of a voice to a credible company and extrapolate it back to you. And that's why testimonials have the highest conversion rate of any type of video.
I can concur with that. When we moved to testimonial videos rather than just before and after kind of still images, saw a huge change in the reaction to new leads and new clients coming in.
Yeah.
So as somebody who has worked with the likes of Justin Timberlake, Tony Robbins, presidents, do you see similar struggles in terms of using video correctly? Do you see a pattern of behaviors when it comes to using video well or indeed badly, like a lot of us have done?
Yeah, I think everybody is on Zoom all day. I just saw the stats. 300 million people are on Zoom meetings every day. And yet, if you put them in front of a camera on Zoom, they could communicate with their prospect. But if you put them in front of the same exact camera, but it's recording something, their inner chatter in their brain gets them terrified, and then they shut down. And I think the mistake is missing the opportunity to use a medium like video to be able to go one-to-many or one-to-one and help people through the process. And I think most people wouldn't want to be on camera. Most people are like, yeah, it's not really my thing. But most prospects prefer it. In fact, people are 4 times more likely to watch video than to read. 4 times more likely. So what does that ultimately mean? That means you should be doing video. And because you want 4 times the amount of attention. We're in the attention business. All of us are. And then when we go to convert them after they watch the video, they're 85% more likely to buy. So the biggest thing that I see is most businesses are designed to sell through written word, but people are 4 times more likely to watch the video. And when you read, you're only going to retain 10% of the message. But when you watch it in video, you retain 95% of the message. So almost all of sales is knowledge transfer. Because Rita, let me ask you this question. If your prospect knows what you know and believes what you believe about your solutions, buying from you should be a no-brainer for them, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That means the knowledge transfers amongst the most important parts. And if they only retain 10%, the biggest mistake that businesses are making is they are asking their prospects who don't want to read, because reading is hard and it takes too many mental calories, but they're 4 times more likely to watch video and they're 85% more likely to buy. If we reposition it and use text sparingly and do our heavy lifting with video, we're going to have a significantly higher conversion rate, more deals, and revenue will just flow. And that to me is amongst the coolest things ever.
95% retention is absolutely insane in comparison
Game changer.
to the written word. And that game changing that you help other businesses with, you've led digital marketing campaigns across unbelievable numbers of businesses. What would you say are, if somebody is listening saying, right, I don't even know where to start. I've never filmed a video. Do I need professional backdrops? Do I need lighting?
Right.
Do I need music? What are the kind of key fundamentals that listeners need to start implementing? I'm guessing repetition being one and practice, but what are some of the key fundamentals that somebody needs to start implementing video marketing?
At first, if you are a high-end brand, If you're a company that justifies higher budgets, your videos have to reflect that. If you are a solopreneur or a startup or a mom and pop, your videos do not need to be Spielberg. Like, you don't need Ewoks walking through the middle of your video and a Death Star floating by for people to follow your stories, right? So I think perfection isn't the goal. Connection beats perfection every damn day of the week. So if you can get in front of a camera and make eye contact and demonstrate sincerity and gratitude and provide a transfer of knowledge, and you do that into the camera, I think people will buy from you at accelerated rates. And I know they will, because I've seen the data. And I would encourage businesses to think first about not being scared about needing a video budget. That's like the first condition response. But now I'm teaching trainings where we're teaching people how to create their own videos using AI. And these things are put together really quickly. So I just think people need to start exploring with the technology, because it's not the same technology since the last time they explored it.
So exploration and ensuring that the videos reflect the company, the brand.
Yeah. If you're a medical device company and you're like one of these awards for a medical device company or something that we've worked on, those need to look and feel like they are ready for prime time. And they, if the audio is poor and the visual quality is poor and the messaging is weak, they're going to think that the device sucks and maybe it isn't safe. But for most businesses, simple video will be sufficient.
Okay. So if someone wanted to be introduced beyond this podcast to the world of Todd Hartley and WireBuzz and everything that you do, people listening are probably thinking, he works with Justin Timberlake and presidents. That's probably beyond my scope. So what are the different ways that you work with businesses? Do you only work with the likes of Tony Robbins, or do you have different introductions that people can experience who maybe don't have the budget of, the US White House?
Yep. I know it's funny. Okay. Because yes, we do videos of all that, but I have a digital agency that does that. And then when you start working with somebody like Tony Robbins, you realize that you can provide a service, a very high educational service to people that don't have billion-dollar projects, right? And that's been a real joy for me, because these are the people that are more like my parents, the ones that I really wanted to serve. So I do trainings, and the trainings are, I do sales trainings, how salespeople use video, or business leaders. And the next one is I also teach how to use video and AI to book high quality meetings for yourself, how to generate leads using these tools. And those are both a lot of fun.
Amazing. Okay, so if someone wants to do one of these trainings, then make sure that you head to toddhartley.com. I'm guessing it's all within
If you want
that
training, go to
basic
toddhartley.com. Thank you. And if you're looking for agency work for your business, then wirebuzz.com is the place to go.
Fab. So to sort of bring the episode to an end, although I could ask you many, many questions for hours if I had the chance, where do you foresee your personal world going when it comes to business? Because you have these large companies, but obviously you're now doing a lot more speaking, a lot more events, and at some point, I presume there becomes a singularity of focus. Something has to give for everything to remain in balance. So how do you foresee your next chapter going when it comes to your business?
Yeah. Why are you so damn smart, Rita? How do you know these things? Right. So I'm just kidding. Yeah, I have a team that runs WireBuzz, and I'm the CEO and the founder, and I'm in meetings, but the team has been with me for, I don't know, maybe a decade, and they know what they're doing. And so I play a role there, but my time is spent on the road doing speaking appearances. I just keynoted an event with Gary Vaynerchuk in New York City, and that was phenomenal. And then jumped on a plane and did Tony Robbins's event. And so this is a big part of my life, is training companies and audiences. And I also have a SaaS product, a software as a service product, where my video strategies are all in there for business leaders and salespeople to create videos to accelerate the sales process. And that will be launching at Tony Robbins's Business Mastery event in early January of 2024. And I'm super excited, but people can learn about it early by picking up my book, Accelerating Yes, which will teach you how to take your sales process and create a effortless on-demand buying experience where you, across 5 zones in your business, are able to use video to achieve your business goals faster.
I can highly recommend the book. The 5 zones are part of what I was sort of alluding to when we were talking about, the different ways of using video on the website. So I suppose my final question then is, with all of the work that you've done on yourself, because clearly for someone who has been listening to Tony Robbins since they were a teenager, you've done an awful lot of personal development and personal growth. And for someone who is now branching out into being on the road, as you said, how do you create the balance in your life? Because a lot of people listening to this go, you know what, even just being stuck at home in front of the computer, I've lost the connection with my spouse, my other half. I don't see my family as much. I don't take time for myself. How do you create a balance that means that you've never overall resented what you do? I think a lot of people get to the point at different places where they resent the business because everything else is suffering. How have you trodden that path?
Sometimes not well, right? My wife has bared an unfair portion of the burden. And thank God we've got a great therapist that we both love and we trust tremendously. And we're both willing to work and grow on our relationship. But here's what's really changed. Since COVID, I'm traveling a lot less. I'm doing most of my trainings for corporations out of this room. And I moved out of our WireBuzz office, and I moved into a guest bedroom in the house. And my wife and I bought our dream home, and we're up on the top of a mountain in Scottsdale, and we hike together most mornings. And if you're Tony Robbins or you're Gary Vaynerchuk, then I will entertain jumping on a plane. But for the most part, I'm really comfortable at home. Like right now, I'm business up here, and I've got shorts and flip-flops below. And my wife's coming home, and at 4:00, we're opening up a bottle of wine and we're celebrating her birthday. And her parents are going to be in Michigan on Zoom, opening up a bottle of wine. And we're going to sit down and celebrate our girl. And that for me is the most enjoyable part of my life. And if I do get opportunities, I try to do it remotely because I can impact a business the same way. And they'll get the same strategies, and the revenue will go through the roof. And if you are a Tony Robbins, then my wife and I will often make a little vacation out of it together. But I don't really want to be on the road. It's got to be the right situation.
I love that. Shorts and flip-flops. I am in tracky bottoms and slippers as we speak. So I am totally on board with the business up top and down below. I love it. Look, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I sincerely appreciate all of the time that you have given to us. And like I said, please go and search out Todd Hartley, whether it's through his websites, whether it's through Business Mastery, whether it's through his trainings. But honestly, if you impact or make any change in terms of your marketing, use the impact of video, because it has a sincere effect on how you connect with your audience, especially considering the world that we live in. You know, here we are talking over video to connect with other people. Gone are the days where community is face to face. So thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you to everyone who has listened in and joined us.
Thank you, Rita. It's a real treat to get to meet you in person, to watch your business succeed and take off. To be a part of that gives me an enormous amount of joy. So thank you for filling my bucket.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all on the next episode.